of sociolinguistics. In general, it's going to be a very brief and general introduction to the application of sociolinguistics and the branches behind which are operating under the application of sociolinguistics. So, first of all, I would like to tell you about what is applied sociolinguistics. So, sociolinguistics applied sociolinguistics can be narrowed down to different interpretations, but it can be narrowed down to as the application. It's the application of the theory of the results of the theoretical linguistics research in teaching and learning of foreign and second language. So this is the narrow interpretation of applied sociolinguistics. But on a broader sense, it can also be referred to as the application of linguistics research to the solution of practical, and maybe it can be pragmatism or other branches of the educational and social problems like the sociology of language, etc. Comes under applied linguistics or applied sociolinguistics. So, by applied sociolinguistics, it can also be meant as an attempt in which our sociolinguistic findings and sociolinguistic insights is used as an assistant to solve the real-world problems. It's given here. So, first of all, before going into applied sociolinguistics, we have to understand that sociolinguistics is a science or a pseudoscience. And it has, among its objectives, it has a understanding. It has to be, focused on the understanding of the nature of the language, and in its manifestations, it will be used for a greater understanding of the society. So, using of language to understand society. So, after knowing what is sociolinguistics, applied sociolinguistics can be interpreted as referring to the activities in which all the research of the sociolinguists are employed in other fields. In other fields, say, be it in psychology, be it in education, be it in social or language policy, be it in even in speech therapy like doctors, and even in legal proceedings, and be it in AI-induced speech communication, etc. So these are the uses of applied sociolinguistics. So after knowing what is applied sociolinguistics, I would like to come up on a brief history of how applied sociolinguistics has been used to be come about. So first of all, William Labov. William Labov has used sociolinguistics in different ways. So, different ways, and it has been carried out for practical purposes by Labov. So, following Labov, there are a large amount of works that has been carried out, firstly in the empirical studies of the language in its society, from society, the empirical data are collected. And after that, such research by Labov and his followers, so to say, they are aimed at improving the linguistic theory, first of all, linguistic theory, then after that, for acquiring a better understanding of the nature of the language, and third of all, the sources of all these linguistic change, what's the sources of variation in language. So these are studied under Labov and his followers. But shortly after Labov, from the 1960s, a new wave came, where all the work of Labov are applied in educational problems. So first, it was under the debates which was concerning about the use of non-standard, not the standard dialect, but the non-standard dialects or in education. This was done in United States, USA, United States of America. Which was firstly done especially in AAVE or African American Vernacular English. So after this, there was increased debates happening for the understanding of linguistic variation and also their phonological, grammatical description of the non-standard dialect. So the onus or the focus has been shifted from the standard dialects to the non-standard dialects. So this is a brief history about how applied sociolinguistics came into being. So it was firstly applied in the field of education, so as to say. After that, there are many other applications of sociolinguistics. One of them is the use of our sociolinguistic methodology and the identification of the speakers and his voices, which are used in legal proceedings to identify the speaker, nature of the speaker. And this field is also called as forensic sociolinguistics. Okay, so it has to be used in identifying criminals and their social backgrounds, etc. So this is a part of applied sociolinguistics. Another one is in language learning. So in language learning, the application of variation theory. We have talked about variation theory before. Theory or change of language is called variation theory. So this application of variation theory, they try to incorporate the sociological findings. Okay. So the sociological findings and the structure, which are concerning about the structure in the social system and the nature of linguistic variables, they are so as we say, turned into theoretical models. The data and the empirical studies, they are put together to formulate theoretical models, and then these models are used again to understand the links to second language learning or language acquisition programs. Thirdly, there's another branch called the social psychology of language. So in this, it is an area of study which deals with the attitude of the varieties of the dialects or language. So what is the attitude of one community to another community of language, and how they intermingle and how they communicate. So this comes under social psychology of language. So this social psychology of language has a very enormous potential in its applications. And one of them can be used in classroom studies, like the attitude of the teachers for the children's language. The fourth one would be the ethnography of speaking, and it is related to cultural aspects of language. So in this, this is an area which looks at the norms or the cultural norms of using language in different cultures. So after studying this, we will come to understand how different cultures communicate, how different cultures partake in their events, etc. So it is important for cultural aspects are important in understanding the foreign language teaching, because language teaching cannot incorporate only the language, but we have to understand the culture of the other community in order to teach the language. So this is important, and it is also important in cross-cultural communication as well. Number 4, we have to talk about this again, the sociology of language, and it is closely related to language, sociology of language or sociology. It is an interdisciplinary field, and it is related to sociology as well, and it is used in the solution of social problems which are happening in and around. So as to say, ethnic conflict or social diversity, etc. So this sociology of language is used. It is also used in the language planning, of planning how to use language. So focusing on language planning, it means it refers to the governmental or quasi-governmental activities. So it particularly means in multilingual situation, it is so as to say use and the design are influenced to solve the linguistic problems in the multilingual settings. So this comes under one of the issues, is the issue of use of vernacular language in education comes under language planning. The last, not the least, would be discourse analysis. So it looks analytically at the text and the conversation, the interaction, and these will achieve a greater understanding of the textual cohesion. Textual cohesion and textual coherence. Okay, so it is using a text interpretation of text. So, and these rules are used for carrying out an interpretation of conversations. So it has an important application in communication, in the use of mother tongue and foreign language teaching. So communication, again, textual communication, and the analysis of news reporting, etc. as well. So with this, these are the some of the uses, some of the branches of applied sociolinguistics. Next, I would like to focus on one of the key applications of sociolinguistics, and it is related to education. So, first of all, in my previous presentation as well, I have talked about this. I have talked about multilingual education, etc. So, I'm going to continue and give some more key features in education. So, first of all, we have to understand the ideology behind language ideology that's behind educational programs and as an influence under it, how educational programs are influenced by the language ideology of the place of the system. Secondly, we have to, in order to understand education, it is important to understand the social identities of the students which are living near the under the system. So, the social identities of the student is important. The third one is, it is mainly related to our region, in Northeast region as well, the use of minority language and dialects in classroom. And it has been very, so to say, area of study we have to focus in Northeast. And fourth, it can be issue of legitimation of language, or the legitimation of the minority language and dialect, so that it can be used in classroom for teaching purposes. And lastly, we all know the importance of English as a global language. It is an international language, so it is driving the social, it is driving the economic, educational forces. So we have already established that English is also I have tried to establish at least in my previous presentation that English has an hegemony over the other languages. So in order to understand and in order to bring forth the use of minority languages, we have to see the growth in English as well to bring forth the use of minority languages in classrooms as well. So now comes social dialect and education. We have seen that many linguists have agreed that the variety of language, there is no inherently better than the other variety of language. So all are same in the eyes of the linguist. But in the real context or real world, the standard variety of language has a better so as to say, in the social sense. It's better in the social sense because it has a heightened or a preferred status of the language, and second, it has certain social advantages in terms of communication or in terms of opportunities in work, in terms of opportunities in education as well. So, after knowing this, after knowing that there's a hegemony of the standard language, the question now comes is, what role do children's own dialects or the local language and discourse play in the access to educational opportunities? So it means how can these educational programs make their language and their culture as a resource in education? This is the main problem that we have to tackle. We have to understand in learning in learning the minority language as well. So here I would like to present a theory by Basil Bernstein, which talk about the relation between culture and language. So he said that there's a reciprocal relation. His theory comes after reading of I think Wolffian hypothesis, etc. So after he said that there's a direct and reciprocal relation between the particular social structure, particular culture, and the way people in that social structure use language. It can be also said that the children, it means that these particular social structure, they will lead to a particular social behavior. So behavior and structure, linguistic behavior and structure are related, and then this behavior in turn again reproduces the previous social structure. So in this way, a cycle exists in these social patterns, and it produces the linguistic pattern against social pattern, and so on and so forth. So this is what Bernstein's theory talk about. We can also see the importance of communication in these aspects, not only culture, importance of communication. And communication, they play an important role because individuals learn their social roles in society from the process of communication. Without communication, they cannot learn their roles. So these processes, they differ from different social groups, from different age groups. So with this communication, it perpetuates the differences of role differences in society. So according to Bernstein, we can say that social structure and process of communication produces social linguistic behavior, and in turn produces the social structure again as a cycle. So why is this Bernstein model important? From Bernstein's model, we can see that the importance of language in forming the structure of a society. So children should be taught in a certain way, and should be, the way that we inhibit as children will become the next generation and the future are shaped by the way we use language. So according to Bernstein, it is set here. Now, role of the local language in education. Okay. Jeff Seegers, another social linguist, he pointed out that there are problems in the forbidding the use of the language in classroom. So these problems can include social problems, social issues, cognitive issues, and psychological disadvantage to the children. So forbidding of use of the home language of the children is disadvantageous. So with this, children who are forbidden their language, their home language, they have issues. First, they have issues with their identity. They have an identity crisis when growing up, understanding what it is. So they have issues with their identity. They have insecurity about expressing themselves. They don't know how to talk to their peers, to their teachers. They have insecurities, and they have also difficulty in acquiring literacy skills. This is because the use of dual languages with the the use of our own mother tongue heighten our cognitive, so we should say, cognitive skills. So, Sigurd pointed out 3 ways to incorporate this dialects, but I'm not going to go into this. However, the thing is that all these programs, they require recognition of legitimacy. Without legitimacy in the language, it cannot be incorporated into the education system. So the question of legitimacy that I have talked about before comes here. So in order to bring legitimacy, it requires an ideological stance for the use of the ideology, which is pluralism, a plural society, and the acknowledgement of the linguistic inequality. I have talked about it in my previous presentation, what is linguistic inequality. So it requires these things. So before education,
you have completed 20 minutes.
Okay, I will finish. Yes. So education, believe that there's an immersion of language of the dialect in the standard was the norm before bilingualism and use of other languages came into being. So immersion means use of the language dialect in the standard is the best way for children to learn. But obviously after several research, it does not support this view of immersion. While we say that exposure to the language variety is essential, it is not the best way and the most effective way to learn. Rather, the most effective way to learn is dual language or triple language formulas, etc. So with this, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you.